we met at the PRI in Tokyo, the Principles of Responsible Investing. You led the PRI for how many years was
Nearly
it?
10. Yeah, nearly 10.
Nearly 10 years. And you came back and shared at one of the side events at the recent PRI in Tokyo. And I was really taken back by the way you started your presentation, because often we go to these events and it's a little bit of patting ourselves on the back for all the good that we're doing in the world. But you started out your presentation with some stark realities that we are not on a pace to achieve net zero, 1.5 degree temperature rise, that we're not on a path to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. You have them in your background. Why did you choose to lead with some of these troubling statistics? What was inspiring you or leading you in that direction?
Well, I think, as you just said, Matthew, there can be a lot of patting ourselves on the back for the work that we're doing. Now, there is no doubt that the finance sector, the investment world, in looking at responsible investment, has come a long way in the last 20 years. But if we're just sort of thinking about all the great things we're doing, that's one thing, but we have to look at the bigger picture. And I'm a realist. And as I said, while there's no doubt there's individual organisations, pension funds, investment organisations doing fantastic work around the world, as there are other individuals, companies and governments, the fact still remains that, as you said, we are not going to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. So the Sustainable Development Goals, for those unaware, are they're a 15-year agenda. They were established by the United Nations in 2015. Every country in the world signed on to them. And they're basically a roadmap of all of the biggest issues in the world and how we need to focus on them. So we're at the halfway point in time to the Sustainable Development Goals in 2023. But we're nowhere near halfway there in terms of progress. Under the 17 goals sit 169 targets. Only 20% of the targets are on track, and none of the 17 SDGs are on track. So we're halfway there in timelines, but we're not halfway done in terms of action. If we think about climate, it is one of the SDGs. And it's arguably the most urgent SDG, and it's the one that receives the most attention from governments, from the private sector as well. But we are on track to keep the world to 1.5 degrees of warming, which is in line with the aims of the Paris Agreement. And it's not going to happen. At the moment, we're talking about COP28, and we're not getting an agreement about phasing out fossil fuels or ending fossil fuels. So best estimates say that with increased action, and that's with a lot of increased action, we'll get to 1.7 or 1.8 degrees of warming. We're at about 1.1 degrees of warming now, and we already see what's happening in the world in terms of global warming, what's happening in countries, the increased weather issues that are happening. So I think that while we can celebrate how far we've come, we can't lose sight of the fact that we aren't doing enough and we have to act with more urgency. And I think we need to be really honest with people about the realities of climate change and what it means, and where we're at. And that, a lot needs to change if we're going to be able to continue to have a world that's inhabitable for everybody.